36.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Minister, a huge injustice has been done to Golson and Hardwick, who concluded the operational review into Oberstown, and indeed, I would say, an injustice to the staff in that organisation and the children who are being managed there by the non-publication of that report, despite the promises given, and indeed the lack of a facilitation of those individuals in going back and giving feedback to the staff there. So I'm wondering what's been done to correct that situation.
2 minutes, Minister.
I'm going to propose to take, I think we have 2 PQs, 11 and 14
That's correct,
together.
yes.
Is that correct?
That's fine.
Is that
That's fine.
Okay, okay. In September of 2016, the Oberstown Board of Management commissioned an external independent review of operations and best practice at the campus. The review was undertaken by 2 international experts in this field, Professor Barry Golson and Professor Nicholas Hardwick. The board carefully reviewed each recommendation made in the report and published its recommendations together with the board's response in July of 2017. The publication of the report's recommendations ensured that the supportive and developmental aims of the review were met. I established a review implementation group in March of 2017 to oversee the implementation of all the various recommendations arising from a number of reviews carried out around the same time, including the recommendations of the operational review. The group produced a coherent plan to implement all the recommendations and their action plan, completed in May of 2018, and this was published on my department's website. Since this group was established, I'm pleased to say that there is real evidence of positive change in the day-to-day operations of Oberstown, and this change is most recently reflected in the HICWA's report of their inspections into the campus. The Board of Management of Oberstown had a number of concerns about the publication of the report of the operational review and decided, after careful and lengthy process of deliberation, including the commissioning of independent legal advice, that it was not safe to publish the full report of the review. I sought legal advice of the Attorney General on the matter, who gave me similar advice that there would be significant legal risk in publishing the report in full. Accordingly, after careful consideration, I concluded that it was not appropriate to publish the full report. I wish to emphasize that my department's focus and that of Oberstown Children Detention Campus is on the implementation of the recommendations, so as to ensure that there is a safe and stable environment in Oberstown for children detained there by the children's courts and for the staff who work there. The terms of reference for the operational review included a provision for a feedback visit from the reviewers to present concluding observations and recommendations to staff, management, and young people. Oberstown envisaged that the visit would take place before the reviewers had finalized their report, so that any comments could be taken into account in the final version of the report. However, the reviewers maintained that it would not be possible to provide feedback until the final report had been completed. As a result, the visit did not take place. I have no difficulty, in principle, if the reviewers wish to visit Oberstown again at this stage. Any such visit, I think, would be a matter for the Board of Oberstown and the reviewers. I will ask the Board to consider any request from the reviewers to return to visit the campus. I will be out there this afternoon.
Now, first Deputy Daly and then Deputy Ravish. 1 minute each.
I'm afraid your response, Minister, has actually made the situation, I would say, worse, given the sequence of events which we know to have existed over the past period, thanks to the work of RTE in unearthing some of the emails. And we know, in fact, that the legal advice issued by the Attorney General did not say that the report could not be published in full. In actual fact, it's very clear from the 13th of November email, which was published, that the Attorney General said publication of the report would be possible if certain steps were followed. It seems equally obvious, looking at that that correspondence, that the mechanism suggested by your department to achieve this goal were actually ignored by the management of Oberstown, and that the only person who commented on the report or was asked to comment was the director, somebody who'd already had extensive meetings with the two reviewers about it already. So when the concerns about fair procedures, who were they supposed to apply from? Because it certainly looks like the board and the chair of the board basically threatened resignations if you proceeded with the course of action that you recommended should be taken.
Thank you very much, Deputy Rabbit.
Thank you, Deputy Daly, for sharing your time. Minister, as opposition spokesperson for Children and Youth Affairs, it is my role to hold you and your department to account. And on this instance, there is a report commissioned since 2016 that has not been published. And in good faith, I hear what you're saying with legal advice, that you've spoken to the Attorney-General. But it's really hard for me to be critical or to do my job without knowing the baseline. And the baseline is what's within that report, not what's within the recommendations. That's totally different, but what's within the findings. Because we have to start somewhere, but we're starting in the dark. You know it, and I'm glad you do, but we all need to know it. We need to know where we're starting with Oberstown to go forward. And I can't start with Oberstown or park it based on a recommendation. I need to know what's within it.
Thank you very much. I know, Deputy, I'll let you in a minute, Deputy. I wanted to Minister, and I promise to let you in then. Minister.
Okay, thank you. I don't accept the fact that my response makes this worse. I don't accept that at all, Deputy Daly, though I appreciate that is your view. And also, Deputy Rabbit, I appreciate what you're saying, but what I have been describing is a process whereby, in my judgment as Minister, that there have been a number of reports and reviews, including HICWA, who had sight of the full operational review, out of which is accepting that the recommendations and that an action plan has put in place and those recommendations are being implemented. In relation to further other questions in terms of some of the board's concerns and reasons why they have made the decision that it is legally risky in order to publish, their concerns were that the reviewers went outside of the terms of reference. The board felt that some issues were addressed and one issue was not addressed at all. That is, to identify obstacles or barriers in achieving greater implementation of international standards and best practice. They also dealt with issues of national law and policy and other matters over which Oberstown has no control. Fair procedures were not adhered to. Oberstown has advised that, for example, persons mentioned were not given an opportunity to respond to the reviewer's findings. Factual accuracy checks did not take place, and although some changes were made to the report at the time, the findings did not change. These are some of the reasons that are underneath the fact that there are legal risks then in relation to publication.
I'm just giving a little bit extra time because this is a very serious matter. Deputy Daly, 1 minute.
Your response made the situation worse, Minister, it's because it's not accurate. And now we have a new departure again now, where for the first time on the record of this House, the reviewers' work is being questioned. We're being hinted at that they went outside the terms, as if it was their fault. That's a new thing now, so this is actually getting worse. That was never said previously. We have seen the sequence of events of the rigorous scrutiny that those two internationally renowned professionals went to try and get the report corrected, tested, accuracy tests. We've seen the sequence. I'm not going to repeat, but it's patently untrue that they didn't check the factual accuracy. They gave the board and the director multiple opportunities to comment on the situation and asked repeatedly to return to the staff. In fact, at a day-long meeting on the 20th of December 2016, they met with the chair and the director in Liverpool. They made a plan, agreed a plan of the next steps, of revisions, further opportunities for the chair and director to come back. They didn't come back. Further further contacted, initiated by the reviewers, January, February, March, no indication during any of those that there were steps taken by Oberstown to facilitate the requests of those people to go back and debrief staff as they had agreed to do. We have a huge problem here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If these two gentlemen were based in Ireland, they would not be treated like this, not to mind the children who got lengthy jail sentences as a result of events which occurred in that institution, which, if we had the full facts, might have been different.
Thank you again, Deputy Daly. Minister, you spoke about HICWA and since then that there has been improvements in it. But a report by HICWA earlier this year expressed concerns about the inappropriate use of handcuffs at Oberstown, as well as concerns over the facility's approach to child protection complaints. Now, maybe you can say I'm taking that out of context, but I go back again, I don't have the baseline to see where the improvements have come from, where the recommendations are being implemented, because I'm working in the dark. I don't have the reports. I'm taking it that it's a combination of things, and I take on board the chair and the manager has come before the Oireachtas Committee for Children. But we have looked for this report numerous times, and the reason we've looked for it numerous times, we want to be fair to the board and we want to be fair to the staff, and we do want to acknowledge that the recommendations are being implemented, but we don't have the baseline to see where it's improved from.
Thank you very much. I allow Deputy Mitchell in.
Yes, please.
Thanks very much, and just thanks for giving me the time. Minister, this is a question that I too want answers to. I can't understand how withholding this report is in the best interests of the children currently in Oberstown. These children deserve to have their human rights upheld, and part of that means independent external oversight. This is another example of closed loop that exists here, where reports are being published and reports are being requested and they go from the government to the department to agencies, and we in here never get to see them. The media is looking for this report, rights groups are looking for this report, and politicians in this House are looking for this report. This needs to be available for public scrutiny. Now, if you have real concerns about this report, can you not redact it and publish it?
Minister.
Maybe I begin by saying, needless to say, or maybe I do need to say, that I share deeply the Deputy's concerns for the safety and the support of the children in Oberstown. I have been there many times. I am going there this afternoon. I have met with staff on their own, I have met with management on their own, and I have met with the children on their own. So may I just make my first point is that I share the concerns of the safety in relation and the support for the children and young people, and that they will move beyond there and that they will be free. And that's what I say every time I see those young people. My hope is that you will be free. So let me just begin by that. That's where my passion comes from too, and I do appreciate my colleagues also have that. I think what I am describing in terms of the responses, Deputy Rabbit, that you're working in the dark, I appreciate that's what you say. I guess what I'm indicating is that we have a number of reports, a number of recommendations, a HICWA report that is actually published, and on the basis of all of that, the implementation of changes and improvements are happening on the campus, and I see them every time I go out there. In relation to Deputy Daly's response back to me, I appreciate what you're saying. I am aware of a lot of that back and forth. I think there are two things that are that we need to separate here, though, is on the one hand, going back with a report to engage with the young people and the staff, etc., as they had hoped to do. That would have been a good thing. That is my view. But it's the other part here is that in terms of the completion of the report, that I've described why, in their view, fair procedures were not followed, and subsequently there is a legal risk in relation to publishing, and that is the same advice that I also received.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the next question here.